Malishma, what's up? Anashim, Mishpaka, Shalom Yehudim, Mashalom Ha, to you men, Mashalom Ka, to you ladies. I greet you all this Yom, to all the Bayit, the house of Yasharel and Yehudim, all the Goyim coming out of paganism, all the Garim feeling alienated, but now being grafted in to the Bayit of Yasharel and Yehudu and Yehuda. Shalom, Shalim, and Mashalom Ka, Mashalom. Welcome to the Eliyahu's channel. Hallelujah. I greet you all. You have tuned in to the EliyahuChannel.com or HaRuachEliyahu channel and YouTube, as well as eagleshavenministry.com on YouTube. Thank you for joining us today as we continue and begin our Parashat of chapter 1 of Genesis, which is Parashat in Hebrew, chapter 1, verse 1 all the way to chapter 6 through 1 through 8. In comparison with the Sefer Yashar, this is going to be we're going to start this parashat anew for the year. This way we can have it in our archives. People could do it, watch the parashat with starting from Genesis or Parashit as a commentary, sharing in the ways of understanding, of a Hebrew understanding and mindset, coming out of Christianity, coming out of the Apostolic Catholic Church mindset. Just to let you know, we do not use the replacement theology. We're correcting those words and taking back what belongs to us according to the original Hebrew and some of the original Greek that are clean words, eliminating the paganistic Greek and Latin words that has been translated into our scriptures instead of transliterated correctly, and we want to eliminate it and delete it out and start speaking the clean words. Praise Abba Yah, hallelujah. Yahuwah has delivered us and will continue to deliver us as we walk in the right rule of instructions of not being lawless, but being in loving submission in his house. And he has house rules, and he will deliver us and direct us and guide us. We give him praise and honor for his deliverance. Hallelujah. Welcome. It's good to see you. It's been a while, but we're going to start off where we went and started the parashats a little bit of in the middle, because we were doing the comparison with the book of Sefer Yashar. Some people call it Jasher, the book of the upright, the book of light, as they say in Hebrew. But in Hebrew, it is Sefer Yashar. And we're going to go ahead and welcome again. It's good to see you all. There is my information you can see on the screen. If you'd like to write us, or you want to go on to eagleshavenministry.com or eagleshavenministry@yahoo.com. Email us directly at this email address or write us at this P.O. Box. Thank you very much for tuning in. Well, I'm excited what we're going to be sharing with you this Yom, and I just pray right now in the Shem of Yahushua HaMashiach, Abba Yah, Yahuwah, we come before you in your precious name, asking you to deliver the people and minister to them and give them an open heart and mind to receive your Torah. As we read the parashit of Genesis, the first 5 chapters, and begin this year of reading, we ask you to give them an open heart and mindset. We cast down all high things that exalts itself against the knowledge of Torah and the Tanakh, and bring into captivity every thought to complete obedience to the word of Shem of Yahuwah. Hallelujah. We ask you, Abba, to deliver us and break the strongholds of all Roman Apostolic Catholic doctrines of men. It has been mixed in and brought into the Christian community, inheriting lies from the forefathers of the Catholic Church and also the forefathers of the Reformationists that are not our forefathers. For our forefathers are Abraham, Ishak, Jacob, and all them that are named in the scriptures of the Tanakh and the Torah. And we pray, Abba, in the Shem of Yeshua, that you would touch their hearts. We welcome your presence of the Ruach Kadosh to come into their house, to come into their, while they're watching by a tablet, through the internet, via into their TV set, or they're watching through their cell phone. I ask you, Abba, to touch them by the Ruach Kadosh, and let your same presence that's here with me this Yom be there with them and their Yom watching in the Shem of Yahushua HaMashiach. We pray even now. We pray this now. And we break every stronghold that has been adopted in to their language and their words, and any arrogance and pride that would try to come in of religious spirits. We break it off them in the Shem of Yeshua, and a teachable, humble, sensible, teachable, correctable spirit will come into every one of our hearts to receive the Torah as it was written in the original language, as we try to speak it in this English language we're using right now, with more corrective words in Hebrew, in the Shem of Yeshua. Amen, amen, amen. Praise Abba Yah. If you never tuned in before, hi, my name is Eliyahu, and you have reached the Eliyahu channel, or EliyahuChannel.com, or HaRuachEliyahu channel on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. We praise Abba Yah for the opportunity to come and fellowship with you this Yom. We're going to start in Barashit as we tune in to this Barashit together. And this is the first of the Barashit, starting in Genesis chapter 1 to chapter 6, 1 through 8. Comparison with Sefer Yashar, chapter 1 through chapter 5, verse 10. Praise Abba Yah as we continue this Parashat comparisons with Yashar. Many people have wrote me and said they wanted to continue, but we're going to start now from the beginning and proceed forth. Let's see how far we go. Praise Abba Yah. Hallelujah. We're going to go ahead and begin in Barashit, Perek Ahud, and Pasuk Ahud, chapter 1, verse 1. And I'm going to bounce back and forth. We're going to go and do some research here. It's going to take us some work. I might have to separate it and break it part 1 and 2 just to do this first Barashit. We're going to go ahead and begin. In the beginning, Elohim created the Shamayim and the Eretz, and the earth came to be formless, empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Ruach of Elohim was moving on the face of the waters. You notice there's a footnotes here in in verse 2. It says, but the earth became formless and empty, because in the beginning it wasn't. There's a missing episode here. You actually can remove verse 2 completely, and it can go, in the beginning Elohim created the Shamayim and the Eretz, and Elohim said, let light come to be, and light came to be. And you wouldn't even notice verse 2, because there's a mystery here. And the mysteries are found in Yirmiyahu chapter 4, verse 23, and Yeshayahu chapter 24, verse 4 through 6, giving us the ministry of the darkness on the face of the deep. So, because this is what we call the pre-Adamic age, the time of before the Adam and Hawa, where there was another time of when the earth was created and the earth was destroyed and it became darkness. So there's a little time lapse here, And you can find it, and that would give you a little bit of the understanding of what took place. If we were to look at it and go to Jeremiah, and I looked at the earth and saw it was formless and empty, and the Shamaim, they had no light. And I looked at the mountains and saw they shook, and all the hills were swaying. And I looked and saw there was no man, and all the birds of the Shamaim had fled. And I looked and saw the garden land was a wilderness, and all its cities were broken down at the presence of Yahuwah by his burning displeasure. Now let's look at Yeshayahu chapter 24. See, Yahuwah is making the earth empty and making it waste, and shall overturn its surfaces, and shall scatter abroad its inhabitants. Starting in verse 1. And it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with his master, as with the female servant, so with her mistress, and as with the buyer, so with the seller, as with the lender, so with the borrower, as with the creditor, so with the debtor. And the earth was completely empty, utterly plundered, for Yahuwah has spoken this word. And the earth shall mourn and wither, the earth shall languish and wither, the mighty people of the earth shall languish. And the earth has been defiled under its inhabitants, because they have transgressed the Torah, the right rule, the Torah, and broken the everlasting covenant. Verse 6, therefore I curse shall consume the earth, and those who dwell in it be punished. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth shall be burned, and few men shall be left. So in Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, in verse 23, I looked in the earth and saw it was formless, empty, and the Shamaim, they had no light. And so this is the reference of that missing piece, where there was another time of destruction, and it became formless and empty, and all the inhabitants of the earth was shaken and destroyed. In Yeshayahu chapter 24, 4 through 6, and verses 17 to 21. Now let's go back to Barashit, Genesis. And Elohim said, let light come to be, and light came to be. And Elohim saw the light, and it was Tob. And Elohim separated the light from the darkness. And Elohim called the light Yom, and he called the darkness Lila. He called it night. And there it came to be the evening, and there came to be the morning, and the first Yom. By the way, we're reading from the ISR. From the scriptures, yes, 1998 ISR. In verse 6, and we're not going to begin on Yashar until chapter 2, because this portion is not included in the book of Yashar. So I'm going to read from Torah this portion, and then we'll start Yashar, and then you can follow along with your scriptures with Yashar. Right now we're just reading the creation story. And Elohim said, let an expanse come to be in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. And Elohim made the expansion, or the firmament, and separated the waters which were under the expansion from the waters which were above the expansion or firmament. And it came to be so. So the water above and water below the Shamaim. In verse 8, and Elohim called the expansion Shamaim, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the second Yom. And Elohim said, let the waters, the Maim, under the Shamaim be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it came to be so. And Elohim called the dry land Aretz, and he collected of the Maim, he called seas. And Elohim saw that it was dope. In verse 11, and Elohim said, let the earth, Aretz, bring forth grass, the plants that yield seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, and whose seed is in itself on the Aretz, and it came to be so. And the Aretz brought forth grass, the plant that yields seed according to its kind, and the trees tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was dope. Verse 13, and there came to be evening, and there became morning, the third Yom. In verse 14, and Elohim said, let lights come to be an expansion of the Shamaim to separate the Yom from the night, and let them be for signs, appointed times, and for Yoms, Yamim, and for the years. And let them be for lights in the expansion for the Shamaim to give light on the Eretz, and it came to be so. So there was the creation of the lights, and this is before he even created the greater light. We call the Shamesh, they call the sun in English. So there was light created first, and Elohim in verse 16 made two great lights, the greater light to rule the Yom, and the lesser light to rule the Laila, and the Kokabim. Kokabim or Kokab, we don't use the word Astara, that's a Latin pagan word for Astaris, okay? So it's Kokab in Hebrew or Kokabim. If we were to read it in the book of the Orthodox Jewish translation, he made the Kokavim. All right, Kokavim. Kokab or Kokavim. Verse 17, and Elohim set them in the expanse of the Shamaim to give light on the Eretz. In verse 18, and to rule over the Yom and over the Laila, and to separate the light, the Or, from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was tov. Verse 19, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the fourth Yom. And Elohim said, let the waters teem with Shaol, the living creatures, and let the birds fly above the Eretz on the face of the expansion, or we would call, not just the word expansion, of the Shama, they call the firmament, Rakia in Hebrew, which is the expanse firmament, okay, the visible arch, the Rakia. Verse 21. And Elohim created the great seas and creatures, and every living creature that moves, with which the waters teemed according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was tov. Verse 22. And Elohim baruched them, saying, bear fruit and increase, and fill the waters of the seas, and let the birds increase on the Eretz. Verse 23, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the fifth Yom. Verse 24, and Elohim said, let the Eretz bring forth the living creatures according to its kind, livestock, creeping creatures, and beasts of the Eretz, according to its kind. And it came to be so. Verse 25, and Elohim made the beast of the Eretz according to its kind, livestock according to its kind, and all creep on the earth, Eretz, according to its kind, and Elohim saw that it was tov. Verse 26, and Elohim said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the Shamaim, and over the livestock, and over all the Eretz, and over all creeping creatures that creep on the earth. And Elohim, verse 27, created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. Male and female, he created them. In verse 28, and Elohim baruched them, and Elohim said to them, bear fruit and increase and fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the Shamaim, and over all the creatures of the earth. We were to pause there for a minute and look at it with the Orthodox translation. And Elohim baruch them, and Elohim said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish. But now, if we look at also in the King Amos translation, it says, and Elohim baruch them, and Elohim said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth. So, it says, replenish the eretz, which is in Hebrew, maleh malah, maleh malah, which is mem lamed aleph, maleh malah. Replenish, accomplish, confirm. So it is to refill, replenish, to repopulate what was there before, that was there and then destroyed, wiped out. That's where it matches verse 2, and going into the scriptures we looked up in Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah chapter 4:23, and Yeshayahu chapter 24 as well. Replenish. Some translations won't say it, replenish, and this is in the original, replenish the earth. And here it says, be fruitful and increase. But in the Hebrew, we know it is the Hebrew word for maleh malah, for replenish. It's a wide root word. Accomplish it, fill it up. And Elohim said, see, I have given you every plant that yields seed, which is on the face of the eretz, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it is for food. And to every beast of the eretz, and to every bird of the shamaim, and to every creeping creature on the eretz, in which there is high, every green plant, it is for food, and it came to be so. And Elohim saw that he had made, see, it was very tov, and all there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the 6th yom. Sta'im Pasuk Ahud. Thus the Shamaim and the Eretz were completed, and all the raid, and all their array. And on the 7th Yom, Elohim completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the 7th Yom for all his work which he had made. Verse 3, and Elohim baruch the 7th Yom, and set it apart, because on it he rested from all his work which Elohim in creating had made. The Shabbat was a covenant which we're going to see to the Shamaim and the Eretz, and it was a covenant, commandment, or a feast, a celebration of rest, even before the 10 commandments of the Torah. So it is a covenant from the very beginning. Verse 4, these are the births of the Shamaim and the Eretz, when they were created, in the Yom that Yahuwah Elohim made earth and Shamaim. Now no shrub of the field was yet on the Eretz, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up, for Yahuwah Elohim had not sent rain on the Eretz, and there was no man to till the ground. But a mist went up from the Eretz and watered the entire surface of the ground. And Yahuwah Elohim formed the man out of the dust from the ground, and the dust is the mineral context. Animals is made from the earth, and that's protein, and we're made from the dust. And breathed into his nostrils breath of high, and the man became a living being. Let me show you here. In verse 7. And the dust is a far dust, clay, earth, ground, mortar. It's a little different. It's more of the mineral content than the animals of the earth. That's why it says dust. Okay? Let's see what it says in the Orthodox Jewish. And Hashem, Yahuwah, Elohim formed the Adam of the Ophar. See? Ophar. Mim ha-Adam. And breathed into his nostrils the Mishmat Chaim. And the Adam became a Nefesh Hayah. Like Ayah, Asher, Ayah, a living being. That's why when we say Ayah, Asher, Ayah, for the Creator's name, Yahuwah, for the Yod-He, Vav-He, Yod-He, in Shemitic Paleo-Hebrew, it's Hayah. Ayah, Asher, Ayah, became a living being. Verse 8, and Yahuwah, Elohim planted a garden in Eden to the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground Yahuwah Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, tov for food, with the tree of high in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. See, the tree of knowledge of good and evil is just like the educational system. They have a knowledge of good and evil, tov and lo, good and bad, good and evil. When they go to school, they get educated to learn good and bad. A judge knows the right rule, a good and bad. A physician knows the good and evil, the right rule. In verse 10, and a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divided and became 4 riverheads. We're going to stop there because this is the portion up to the creation of man. So I wanted to begin before we do the comparison, and you follow along with your scriptures with me with the book of Yashar, and then we're going to go ahead and go to, it actually begins in verse 7. So we're going to stop there and begin in the book of Yashar, chapter 1, verse 1. We're going to switch over now to the book of Yashar. And as we look at here in book of Yashar, before we can start to bring it to light, for some of you if they've never read the book of Yashar, the book of the upright, the book of light, the book of the Zadik Tomadim Kodeshim, the book of the upright, stand up, the book of light, as they say in Israel, in Yasharel. It is not written in the scroll, Sefer Yashar, in Joshua, chapter 10, verse 13, and also, behold, it is written in the scroll of Yashar, in 2 Samuel, chapter 1, verse 18, and also this story, now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moshe, so do these also resist the Emet, men of corrupt minds, reprobate concerning the Emunah. 2 Timothy verse 3 through 8. This story is found in Yashar, and the only reason it could be written in the book of Timoteo or Timothy is because he read the book of Yashar as well, and these are the references to the book of Yashar. So if they read it, it's 3 witnesses, 2 or 3 witnesses giving us a confirmation, we can read it too. And keep in mind that the only reason why the scrolls were deleted from the first initial King James Bible. It was originally had 14 books originally, and were deleted was because they were actually deleted after the English Revolution, after the king killed King James' son Charles in 1642 through the Revolution, and the Westminster Confession of the Scottish Presbyterian deleted the 14 additional books from the King James Bible. And you can download it on eSword and get the modulars and download the original King James and all the extra books that were there from the very beginning. And it was originally started the writing of King Amos in 1604, and then they say 1611, but it went through all kinds of stuff and work to 1636 or 37, and it had all the extra books in it. and they were finally deleted because there was a revolution about it. And that's another story, another teaching. But this is a little hint here of the Tov confirmation. And we're going to start to begin now in the book of Yashar, chapter Perek Ahud, and verse Ahud, Pasuk Ahud. And Elohim said, let us, oh, by the way, this translation of the book of Yashar is from Your Arms to Israel. The translation of is called the Restoring the Names translation, written by a Jewish rabbi that believed in the Mashiach, based on the book of Zechariah chapter 6 of Yahuwah, and he wrote this translation of the whole scriptures, adding the book of Yashar back in the late 1800s, and it got reprinted and in the Nazarene form with the correct words, with Yahuwah and Yahushua in the using the correct names and adding Yahuwah and Yahushua Shem in the Shemitic Paleo Katav Ibri, which we trust that you will. We use the Paleo-Shemitic Katav Ibri Hebrew phonetic charts of sound, phonetic sound for Yahuwah, and this is the translation we're using. And Elohim said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. And Elohim created man in his own image. And Elohim formed man from the dust of the ground, and he blew into his nostrils the Ruach of high, and man became a living being endowed with speech. And Yahuwah said, it is not tov for man to be alone. I will make to him a helpmate. Verse 4. And you compare this from verses 7 of chapter 2 with Barashit chapter 2, or Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, as we continue on in Yashar. And Yahuwah caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept, and he took away one of his ribs, and he built flesh upon it, and formed it, and brought it to Adam. And Adam awoke from his sleep, and behold, an Ish was standing before him, a woman. Now, he took the rib apart of man, and he built upon it the DNA of his own DNA, his own bone of his bone, and flesh of his flesh. Verse 5. And he said, this is the bone of my bones, and she shall be called Isha. For this shall be taken from man, and Adam called her name Hawa, for she was the Emma of all living. And this is found, of course, in Bereshit chapter 3, verse 20, and Genesis also 2, verse 22. Okay? And Elohim baruch them, and called their names Adam and Hawa in the Yom that he created them. And Yahuwah Elohim said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And for any of you that have any kind of doubt about this, you just go to your eSword and go to this verse and look up the word Eve, and you're going to see the Hebrew word Hawa there. All right, it's not Eve. You look at the Hebrew number and you'll see Hawa. Verse 7. And Yahuwah Elohim took Adam and his wife, and he placed them in the Gan Adim, the Garden of Eden. Gan Adim, to dress it and to keep it. And he commanded them and said to them, from every itz of the Cain, from every itz of the Gan, you may eat, but from the itz of the knowledge of Tov and evil you shall not eat. For in the yom that you eat of it, you shall surely die. And when Elohim had Barakah and commanded them. He went from them, and Adam and his wife dwelt in the Gan, which is garden, according to the command which Yahuwah had commanded them. And the serpent which Eloah had created with them in the Eretz came to them to incite them to transgress the command of Elohim that he had commanded them. And the serpent enticed and persuaded the Isha woman to eat from the etz, the seed, the fruit, of knowledge, and Isha hearkened to the voice of the serpent. And she transgressed the word of Elohim and took from the etz of the knowledge of Tob and evil, and she ate, and she took from it and gave also to her husband, and he ate. This is found in Genesis chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. Now, this serpent, this reptilian animal, basically can stand upright. It could talk. She did not get shocked and say, "Oh, the serpent is talking," and run to her husband, say, "Hey, there's an animal talking." No, it could talk. Okay, it was clever. It was shrewd. It was most subtle in the garden, as it says in Genesis, Barashit, and it could talk. So it did not shock her, but it went into an enticing conversation because Gederel, the fallen one, that the accuser of the brother, or the fallen one, in the book of Enoch, there's 5 principalities, and one of them, of the principalities here, is the one that tempted Eve, and is Gederel, like we say God, Gederel. Okay? So, and this one is, this principality is the one that tempted Eve, and he went through 7th sin according to the book of Enoch, and this is no turning back. This was the temptation that brought this Malak, fallen Malak, to no return. And you have to read the book of Enoch to understand that and match it up with this particular fallen one. Okay, that possessed the most subtle or subtle or crafty or most knowledgeable creature in the garden, okay, that could communicate and did not shock her. So looking at the verses in Barashit and looking at the verses in Yashar, comparing with Hanuk, and you can get more of an understanding how it got possessed to be, and she was not startled because this creature could communicate. Okay? If you're used to something talking and communicating, it would not startle you either. Verse 11, and Adam and his wife transgressed the command of Elohim, and he commanded them, and Elohim knew it, and his anger was kindled against them, and he cursed them. Now, he gave the charge, according to both Barashit and Yashar, to Adam. Adam is supposed to give the charge, instruction to his wife. She should have, when the animal, the beast, communicated and said something contrary to the instruction of her husband, she should have ran to him first and said, "Honey, this thing is talking. I know it talks, but it said something very crafty to get me to eat the tree of knowledge and good and evil, Tob and lo, and good and no good, and he told me to eat this fruit, and you taught me, husband, not to, because Abba taught you, and this thing is trying to tempt me." But instead, she went and ate, and he got tempted to eat and follow her steps. Verse 12, and Yahuwah Elohim drove them that yom from the Gan Adim to till the ground from which they were taken, and that's in Genesis, Barashit, chapter 3, verse 24. And they went and dwelt at the east of the Garden of Eden, or Gan Adim. And Adam knew his wife Hawa, and she bore 2 sons and 3 daughters. This is based on Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. So if you're following along, this is Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. Mark it down. But you notice something different. He had 2 sons and 3 daughters. Verse 13, and she called the name of the firstborn Cain, saying, I have obtained a man from Yahuwah, and the name of the other she called Abel, for she said, in vanity we came into the earth, and in vanity we shall be taken from it. And this is based on Barashit, Perek Abba, Pasuk Staim, or chapter 4, verse 2, and the verse 14. And the boys grew up, and their Abba gave them a possession in the land. And Canaan was a tiller of the ground, and Abel, a keeper of the sheep. Verse 15. And it was at the expiration of a few years, and they brought an approximate offering to Yahuwah. Now this is verse 3 now of chapter 4. And Cain brought from the fruit of the ground, and Abel brought from the firstlings of his flocks, from the fat of it. And Elohim turned and inclined to Abel and his offering, and a fire came down from Yahuwah, from the Shamaim, and consumed it. Now, there was nothing wrong with the offering for both parties, because there is in the scriptures in first fruits, and also there's not only the Pesach lamb, but there's also the bringing of the crops of the first fruits of your offerings of fruits as well. But there was something wrong with Abel's offering, because it was not his pure first fruit willing offering. There was something unrighteous in his fruit. It wasn't because one supposed to be a lamb and the other supposed to be first fruit. Because we look at Pesach and we look at first fruit, these offerings are all made at the same time. Okay, and Abba with fire came down from Yahuwah, from the Shamaim, and consumed the offering. For Abel, offering was found righteous. And to Cain and his offering, Yahuwah did not turn, and he did not incline to it, for he had brought forth inferior fruit of the ground. So in other words, he didn't bring the first fruit with all purity. He probably kept the first fruit and gave the seconds and thirds, or seconds, or not so beautiful crop. So it's got to be the first fruits of Zadi, Talmudi, first fruit of righteousness. Okay? And he had brought forth the inferior fruit of the ground before Yahuwah. And Cain was jealous against his brother Abel on account of this, and he sought a pretext to slay him. Now, it wasn't Abel's fault that his fruit, Cain's fruit, was not righteous. It was not his fault, but his fault finding his brother regardless. He knew Abba taught Adam, and Adam taught his sons how to bring the offering. Because when they fell, there were skins, and in the skins that was given to Adam and Hawa, that means there was a sacrifice. They tried to cover themselves with leaves, and that is the Greek mindset of Prometheus, his creation, putting leaves upon them when they were ashamed, when they walked before the garden, which is not in this part, okay, of the book of Yashar. We're doing a little comparison here, and you can read it in Genesis, Bereshit yourself. But now, so they already had a knowledge of how to bring the offering of Pesach, and how to do the first fruits was passed down to Cain and Abel. And they knew what to be first fruits of the right root of the feast. They knew it already. The feast was already in operation even before the commandments and Moshe. Okay? And in some time after, Cain and Abel, his brother, went out one yom in the field to do their work, and they were both in the field. Cain tilling and plowing his ground, and Abel feeding his flock. And the flock passed that part which Cain had plowed in the ground, and it sorely grieved Cain on this account. Now this is not Tov what took place, but this is a test. He didn't just kill his brother automatically. Cain just didn't kill Abel. It took time, in the process of time. We're going to see how long it took as we continue to read. But this is not Tov. This is very low Tov, what he did. Basically, Abel ran his sheep over Cain's field. I mean, if somebody's cattle, cows or sheep ran over somebody's crop and farm, that would be against the law in our, even the right rule of Torah, as well as the right rule back then. And the father was testing their blushing conscience. Abba was testing their blushing conscience and the right rule of common sense of respect. But Abel did this, and they provoked his brother Cain and got him angry. He was already upset as it is. This added more salt in the wound. So you could see it wasn't just a quick thing that happened. There was a build-up to it, okay? And Cain approached his brother Abel in anger, and he said to him, "What is there between me and you, that you come to dwell and bring your flock to feed in my land? Why would anybody bring his sheep to eat the fruit of somebody's crop?" I'm not talking about the grain or the wild grain that you normally let sheep and cattle harvest. This is his prize grain. And Abel answered his brother Cain and said to him, "What is there between me and you, that you should eat the flesh of my flock and clothe yourself with their wool?" Oh, so now we see there was this going back and forth. So Cain stole some cattle, sacrificed it, ate it, and took the wool, and he made clothing, made tents or skins or whatever. So this is a process of time going back and forth. You did me wrong, I did you wrong. And now therefore put off the wool of my sheep with which you have clothed yourself, and recompense me for the fruit and the flesh that you have eaten. And when you shall have done this, I will then go from your land as you have said. Well, Cain stole sheep to eat and clothe himself. And so Abel did the same. So it was going back and forth. And Cain said to his brother Abel, "Surely if I slay you this young, who will require your blood from me?" And Abel answered Cain, saying, "Surely Elohim, who has made us in the earth, he will avenge my cause, and he will require my blood from from you should you slay me. For Yahuwah is the Shofet and Arbiter, and it is he who will requite man according to his evil, and the wicked man according to his wickedness, that he may do upon the earth. And now, if you should slay me here, surely Elohim knows your secret views, and will judge you for the evil that you did declare to do to me this young." So he said, you're speaking it in the air, you're saying it and calling it to being, and Abba's a witness, and he's declaring it. Shamaim the Eretz, and Abba knows and hears. So Abba knows all things. And when Cain heard this words which Abel his brother had spoken, behold, the anger of Cain was kindled against his brother Abel for declaring this thing. And Cain hurried and rose up and took an iron part of his plowing instrument, with which he suddenly smote his brother and slew him. And Cain spilt the blood dam of his brother Abel on the earth, and the dam of Abel streamed upon the eretz before the flock. So now, he spoke it into being. He told him, if you do this, Abba hears and knows, and he will surely be the judge and the right rule of the situation. And so now, in evolution, they have this, the Bronze Age, the Brass Age, the Iron Age, the Copper Age, the Tin Age, and the Steel Age, the Iron Age. But we know, it says here, they already had metals. Some form of metal he was using as a plow. They were living hundreds of years. Abba taught Adam, Adam taught his sons, and he says here he took an iron piece of his plow, whatever it was. Okay, it could have been a plow made of stone. Here it's in some stones you can find iron, big, large iron stone, and sharpen it and hook it into a piece of wood and make a plow of it. Because in Genesis it says he took a stone, but it could be like an iron stone. Okay? And after this, Cain repented, saying, slaying his brother, and he was sadly grieved, and he wept over him, and it vexed him exceedingly. So he had conviction after he did it, but he did it. And Cain rose up and dug a hole in the field, and wherein he put his brother's body, and he turned the dust over it. And Yahuwah knew what Cain had done to his brother, and Yahuwah appeared to Cain and said to him, where is Abel, your brother, that was with you? And this is based on Genesis chapter 4, verse 10. Kind of gets mixed up here a little bit, back and forth. And Cain dissembled, I do not know, I am my brother's keeper. And Yahuwah said to him, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries to me from the ground where you have slain him. And this is based on Genesis chapter 4, 9 and chapter 4, 10. For you have slain your brother and have dissembled before me, and did imagine in your heart that I saw you not, nor knew all your actions. See, when his brother Abel told him, Father knows your thoughts and intents of your heart, and you're speaking into being. You see, the sin has to be in the mind first, and then it's a seed. It says in the first chapter, he started to plant the thought of finding an opportunity to slay his brother, but it went away until his brother was taking his sheep and slaughtering it and taking the skins, eating the sheep, and Abel did it back to him, got paybacks. How do you feel now? And then he got anger with the paybacks, righteous upon righteous, eye upon eye, tooth upon tooth, and then he got kindled ire. Instead of saying, you know what, you're right, here's my crop, take it, let me buy sheep, and I can get skins and celebrate and eat, and doing it properly and saying forgiveness to each other. Okay, brother, I'm sorry for running over your field. I will replace it. And they could have made amends, but they didn't. And so it built up compound, pressed together, and it watered that seed that was put in his mind, then his voice, and then it spoke into the air, and it spoke into the air, and it came to pass. Okay, and he knows his thoughts. But you did this thing and you slay your brother for nothing, and because he spoke rightly to you, and now therefore cursed be you from the ground, which opened his mouth to receive your brother's blood, dam, from your hand, and wherein you did bury him. That's chapter 4, 11 through 12. And it shall be when you shall till it, it shall no more give you its strength as in the beginning. For thorns and thistles shall the ground produce, and you shall be moving and wandering in the eretz until the yom of your death. And at that time, Cain went out from the presence of Yahuwah, from the place where he was, and he went moving and wandering in the land toward the east of Gan Adim, Garden of Eden, he and all belonging to it. Verse 14. Now, I want to give you a revelation in verse 32 here, as well as chapter 4, verse 11 and 12. I want you to understand this. You see, he broke covenant of the covenant of Shamayim and the Eretz, and the earth seen the blood of innocence that was shed into the earth, and the earth allowed his voice to speak in the hearing of Abba Yah. And so when somebody's died innocently in a manslaughter, his blood goes forth. Innocent blood has been shed. It will cry out from the Eretz to the Shamayim of Yahuwah. But I want you to know something, that the labors of our hands, when we get forgiveness of our sins, and we come under the blood covenant of atonement and the right rule, and we accept the Shabbat and the feast and the Torah, what happens, there's a switch. If you proclaim and declare, Abba, let Shamayim and the Eretz be a witness to me that I have repented, I am keeping the right rule of Torah and all the covenant, and I speak forth as Shamayim and Eretz to be a witness to me now, and that the earth will yield its full strength to me because it knows I keep covenant. That the earth will yield its full strength in my work of labor, my work of job, in my crops, in everything I do. That the strength of what I do in my labors of the sweat of my brow, Father, will rebuke the thorns and thistles that would try to choke it, and the earth would yield the fruit and bountifulness of the crop to the fullest, because I restore the covenant through keeping the covenant of the Shabbat and the feast and the commandments under the roof of the house of this Eretz, that we are tillers of the ground of everything we do in the Shem of Yeshua. Just want to let you know that. Reverse the curse. Verse 34. And Cain knew his wife in those Yamim, and she conceived and bore a son. And he called his name Hanuk, saying, in that time Yahuwah began to give him rest and quiet on the earth. And Hanuk, of course, we know means upright, righteous, okay? The righteous one, all right? So this is the first Hanuk. This is not the Hanuk that's from the Hanuk of Methuselah, where we get Hanukkah, Hanuk, the upright, righteous, all right, straight and narrow, all right? So, and this is the first one. Don't get it mixed up with Methuselah, Noach, and Hanuk that we're going to read later, right? This is the first one. It's found in Genesis chapter 4, verse 17. And that time Cain also began to build a city. And he built the city, and he called the name of the city Hanuk, according to the name of his son. For in those Yamim Yahuwah had given him rest upon the earth, and he did not move about, wandering as in the beginning. So he repented. He was toiling. Father gave him rest. He tried to repent. He tried to name his son even Hanuk, to be righteous, straight and forward, upright. And I believe the Father forgave him, but it moves on here. And Arad was born to Hanuk, and Arad began Mekuyael, and Mekuyael begot Methusael. A lot of the names almost match like Methuselah, but it's not. Let's keep reading. Now we're in Genesis chapter 5, verse 1. And it was in the 130th year of the high of Adam upon the Eretz that he again knew Hawa his wife, and she conceived and bore a son in his likeness and his image. And she called his name Seth, saying, because Elohim has appointed me another Zerah seed in the place of Abel, for Cain has slain him. In the 130th year, he knew his wife again, and now starts the correct seed line of Seth. But now it's going to be interrupted with an uncorruptible seed line. One's a corruptible seed line, one's going to be an uncorruptible seed line. Okay, the hair of the lineage of Adam. All right? So, Seth saying, because Elohim has appointed me another Zerah seed in the place of Abel, the righteous seed, for Cain has slain him. In verse 2, and Seth lived 105 years, and he begot a son, and Seth called the name of his son Enosh, not Enoch, Enosh, saying, because in that time the sons of men began to multiply and to afflict their beings and hearts by transgression and rebellion against Elohim. And this is based on Genesis chapter 4, 25 and 26. You notice in chapter 2, verse 1, it's verse Genesis 5, 1, and you notice the second portion of verse 1 of chapter 2. It's Genesis 4, 25, 26. I read it and put it in alignment together. Now, if you look at here, and Seth lived 105 years, and he begot a son, and Seth called his son Enosh, which means man, basically man. And it was in the Yamim in the days of Enosh that the sons of men continued to rebel and transgress against Elohim. Men, they call them men, to increase the anger of Yahuwah against the sons of men. And the sons of men went and they served other Elohim, and they forgot Yahuwah who had created them in the Eretz. In those Yamim, the sons of men made images of brass and iron. So brass and iron was already in operation. Okay? Now, remember this. The word man from Enosh is created. And that's the lineage of man. The sinful men from the righteous, the Zadik, from the Loto, not good, seed. Okay? And there's a split there. All right? And they started making corruptible things. Wood and stone. Beside brass and iron. And they bowed down and served them. So they started serving under mighty wood. They're really in trouble now. And every man made his Elohim, and they bowed down to them, and the sons of men forsook Yahuwah, all the Yamim of Enosh and his children. And the anger of Yahuwah was kindled on account of their works and abominations that they did on the Eretz. The sons of Enosh, the days, the Yamim of Enosh. Man, that's his name, man, Enosh, man. And verse 6, and Yahuwah caused the Ma'im, the waters of the river of Gihon, to overflow them. And he destroyed and consumed them, and destroyed a third part of the earth. What? So this was a destruction. This is a different destruction. So there was from the sons of Enosh, of that portion where they're at, okay, separate from the righteous seed of Seth, there was a destruction of 1/3 of the earth destroyed. Okay? There was a warning, and he destroyed them. He didn't want them to get messed up that quick. He had to slow them down and kill that unrighteousness there. Okay? Notwithstanding in this, the sons of men did not turn from their evil lakot, and their ways and their hands were yet extended to do evil in the sight of Yahuwah. And those Yamim there were neither sowing nor reaping on the Eretz, and there was no food for the sons of men, and the famine was very great in those Yamim. There was a great flood, whatever that flood was, or the earth was starting to split, whatever was going on in the atmosphere. And the seed which they sowed in those Yamim in the ground became thorns and thistles and bears, for from the Yamin of Adam was this declaration concerning the Eretz, and the curse of Elohim, which he cursed the earth on account of the sins which Adam sinned before Yahuwah. And it was when men continued to rebel and transgress against Elohim, and to corrupt their halakot, and that the earth, Eretz, also became corrupt, and Enosh lived 90 years, and he begot Kenan. 90 years old he was. Chapter 5, verse 9 of Genesis. And Kenan grew up, and he was 40 years old, and became Hukmah, or should I say, Ta'ath, and had knowledge and skill in all Hukmah. And he reigned over all the sons of men, and he led the sons of men to Hukmah and knowledge. For Cain was a very Hukmah Da'ath, and had understanding in all Hukmah Da'ath. And with his Hukmah, he ruled over HaRuachEliyahu, the spirits, and Sadim. So now, he had, it says, knowledge and understanding, right? But he's giving you a hint what's going on. He ruled over the Ruachim, the spirits, and Sadim. You hear that? If I translated this for you, it is the spirits of the Sadim, the demons, unclean spirits. He ruled over unclean spirits. So, and he ruled over them. He had an understanding to control them. We're going to keep reading here. It gives you a hint what's going on here. Canaan, he knew by his da'ath. And Canaan, verse 11. And Canaan grew up, and he was 40 years old, and he became da'ath, and had knowledge and skill in all da'ath. And he reigned over all the sons of men, and he led the sons of men to Da'ath, Hukmah, and knowledge. And Canaan was very Da'ath, and had understanding in all Da'ath, and with his Hukmah he ruled over Rakim and Sadim. In Hebrew, in English, this would be the spirits of the Sadim, demon unclean spirits. He ruled over the demon unclean spirits. Wow. And Canaan knew by his Da'ath that Elohim would destroy the sons of men for having sinned upon the earth, and that Yahuwah would in that later Yamim bring upon them the Ma'im of the flood. So Canaan wasn't not wicked. He did not rule them with wizardry and sorcery and magic type of Hukmah and Da'ath. He had the Ruach Kadosh, Rakaim, and ruled. In other words, he knew how to control, bind, loose, and have dominion authority over the Rakamim, Sadim, demons, and unclean spirits. And because of that, he ruled over men and became like a melech. And Canaan, by this understanding of Hukmah Ta'ath, that Elohim would destroy the sons of men. So he had a dominion authority over wicked spirits and dominion authority over them, enough to live a Zadik Talmudim, righteous high upon the earth, that Yahuwah would in the later days. So he knew by Abba showed him, because he had authority over evil, and he was ruling in Zadik Tomadim that Abba showed him that there'll be a flood even before Methuselah, before Hanuk, even before Noach. You get that? He had a ha-navim, a word of understanding knowledge, the flood to come. And in those Yamim, Canaan wrote upon tablets of stone that was to take place in the time to come, and he put them in his treasures. And Canaan reigned over the whole earth, and he turned some of the sons of men to the service. So he wrote down in tablets of stone of the future, and he knew, and he probably showed people how they have dominion authority over wicked spirits of all form. It wasn't witchcraft, it wasn't Chaldean wizard, it was a form of having spiritual warfare, dominion authority. With that understanding, Abba gave him, Elohim gave him, to rule over the Rakim of Sadims, of demon unclean spirits. And he wrote it down in a book. Praise Abba Yah of Elohim. I'm going to stop there and continue in verse 15 in the second part to continue on from Genesis chapter 5:13, because we got to get to Genesis Barashit chapter 6 through 8. So we're going to stop there in part 1 and continue in part 2 of this Barashit comparison with Sefer Yashar.